Good morning, everybody. It's Tom Christie back in the painting studio, and this will be a new session to cover the painting of this Hen Common Goldeneye. And this is going to be in a gunning decoy style, so a relatively simple paint job, functional paint job. This is the finished bird. I'm putting this video together after the fact, obviously, but we'll take it step by step through all the colors and the paint steps to paint a bird like this, and I hope that's helpful to you. If my channel has been helpful, please hit the subscribe button. That does help me out, and it's a show of support for the channel. The feedback has been very encouraging, sometimes humbling, but always appreciated for what I'm putting together here. And it's for the love of wildfowl and wildfowl carving, and I hope that you can get some joy out of it like I do. Every time I carve and paint a bird, I learn more about the birds, and I just enjoy the creative aspects of carving and painting as a hobby. So let's get started on this Hen Goldeneye. All right, I'm starting on the Hen Goldeneye now, and I want to start by mixing up kind of a dark, warm gray value, and I used a combination of Nimbus gray, just a touch of carbon black to darken that, added raw umber and raw sienna to warm things up. So if you just use carbon black, it gets very cold and charcoal looking. So this is the value I've come up with. And then when we get up to the neck, looking at the reference, the neck is very light. So we'll use off-white on the neck and blend that down the front of the breast into this gray. The back is going to be just a shade darker than the side pockets. So I'm going to go ahead and paint all of the areas of this color of gray and then come back. Now while that gray body color is still wet, I'm going to take a little angle brush and some off-white, which is white gesso with a little bit of raw umber mixed in, and I want to begin to develop this area around the neck and blend that into the gray down below. And since that's still wet, it's starting to give me an intermediate light gray color. And this will take some work to get a nice blend here. And since I have to coat this a couple of times at least with the off-white to cover the base texture coat, this will take some time. I just wanted to show you enough to get you going. So I also did the cape back here with the gray, and so I'm blending from this area underneath into that cape area. And you can see this initial coat of white is not going to cover. Kind of a neck collar that fades into the breast. And then I'll come back with the gray color in the opposite direction and blend back and forth. One thing, I don't want to leave a hard line here. The head is going to be brown, dark brown. So I don't want to leave a line of white that I can't cover. So I'm just blending that out on the edge so we have a bit of a fade there. All right, I'm going to work this area for a while and then come back. A little farther along, I'm using a little clear water on the brush to drag through this area and help promote the blend of the two colors. And then I'm going to go back and do my second coat on the white. A little farther along, I've got the white value built up now better, and I've switched to a larger filbert with just clear water, and I'm just using that to go ahead and blend around that neck and down into the breast. And we'll leave the breast fairly light here. Keep working it. This is a challenging blend to go from such a light value to a darker value in a short amount of time. So it's going to take time. I know I keep repeating myself on that, but I don't want you to think this is easy, because I find this to be one of the most challenging parts of working with acrylics, is getting a nice soft blend. Oils, in my limited experience, tend to blend together well, and acrylics take some additional time normally. I've got that blend kind of worked out now, and I'm going to paint the head burnt umber. This will take a couple of coats. Just using a small filbert, and I'll get this painted and be back. For the back, I used this same mix but added a little more burnt umber and carbon black, just a little bit more to darken this slightly, so that the scapulars and back have a little darker value than the side pockets. And I'm going to brush that on back to the tertials here. And I've chalked in, this will be off-white, that exposed part of the wing. So I'll get this darkened up, and then I'm up on the cape. I'm going to make that darker as well, but kind of fade that a little bit as I approach the neck there, so it's not too much of a transition. Okay, I'll be back. Now I'm going to darken the tertials. I don't want them to be jet black, but I've just added a little carbon black, a little more to that mix. And I'm going to fade that out and let it lighten as it goes forward. So fairly dark value back here, and the primaries are going to be pretty dark as well. And then again, I'm letting that fade to light as I go forward. And this is still a little wet, so it's helping me blend into that lighter value. Just kind of fade that out. Between the primaries, I'm back to the original back scapulars mix, the darker gray value, but not as dark as those. And then I'm going to paint around the primaries here. Pick up the tail coverts with this darker gray value. and blend this in to the lighter value just by lightening pressure on the brush and kind of doing a scrub blend across that area. I've got more work to do there, but just to give you the idea. Okay, so I'll fill that out. Then I'm going to go with a little more burnt umber and black again in the mix on the tail to darken it slightly more than these coverts. For the primaries, I've added more burnt umber and a little more carbon black to really make these a dark kind of charcoal. They're not black, but they're very dark on the reference that I'm looking at. So I'll get both of those painted in. I'm going to use a little filbert and some carbon black and just darken the tips of the primary group and then fade that into the lighter value. I'll probably go along the lower edge here just to make that stand out from the surrounding area. And then we'll come over this with our outlining of the primary feathers. So I'm going to do this on both sides. Again, this is carbon black, not much paint on the brush, a damp filbert, and I'm just darkening the tip, kind of like we did here, and then blended it forward. That brush got too dry on me, and when that happens, it quits depositing paint. So just redampened it, toweled it off. Just darkening that primary group a little bit on the tip. Underneath the tail, back to the off-white. Same process we used on the neck here. Gets pretty light directly under the tail feathers and then blends into this surrounding gray color. So I'm going to build this up slowly again and get a nice blend between the off-white and this gray by going back and forth like we did on the neck. Right now I'm just getting something started, building up the color. I'll come back and show you this area when I'm done. Just a quick look, I've got that blended reasonably well. Probably keep working on it. Now I'm going to use my off-white and fill in this side where some of the wing feathers are exposed. And this will take a couple of coats. I've got that opened up until right up here and then kind of fades in to the side pocket. I'll get those painted in and come back. Same thing that I did on the tips of the primaries. I went back to the tertial group and just used some carbon black and a little filbert scrubber, and just darkened that feather group a little bit more so they're closer in value to the primaries. All right, I've got carbon black, and I'm just going to go in and put some feather outlines here. Little different approach than we had on the drake. So I'll do that for all the tail feathers. Go ahead while I have black in the brush and pull a quill in here. Just a few of these. Then on my reference, some lighter tips on these tail feathers. So I'm just going to put I'm using the lighter side pocket gray value, and just at the tip, putting a little bit of an edge on the tips of those feathers. Like that. Helps if I'm in camera. There you go. Now, similar to what we did on the drake, I've got a little mixture of Nimbus gray, darkened slightly with the side pocket value, and a little 1/8 inch wide scrubber, and I'm just going in here and putting some feather tip highlights. Put a little return on those coverts. That's about all I want to do on these feathers. Just show an indication of some feather structure there. Quick work. So I'll get those highlighted and then come back. For the primaries, I'm going to use the side pocket value. And starting with the second primary there, put some edges on these. I think I will go ahead and edge the outer primary feather too. Like that. I'm going to use carbon black. Just pull in some quills, and I'm going to go ahead and pull in some quills to these coverts like we did on the drake. For the tertials, I'm going to outline in carbon black. And I'll put some quills in those. Just the ones that are exposed here. That'll keep those nice and dark. Now, similar to what we did on the drake, I have this 1/2-inch Royal Filbert comb brush. And I've got Nimbus Gray with the side pocket value added to darken it a bit. And I'm just going to use the tips of these to indicate the light feather tips that you see on a Hen Goldeneye. This brush is only 1/2 inch, so I'm hitting each feather a few times to get the width I need. But you can see how quick this is to just put some light feather tips across the scapulars here, and it's a pretty nice effect. I'm going to do the same thing on the cape and get it on the head while I'm at it. Not supposed to do that. You need to keep working. And I've got the brush loaded, and then I press it down on the palette to really spread the bristles out. Pretty tight quarters here up near the head. I'm going to reverse it and see if I can get pull them in this direction, just to get a couple down in here. That'll work. All right. I may go back and reinforce that a bit, but that looks pretty decent. Same approach on the side pockets. I've got a little Nimbus Gray with off-white added to lighten it, because these get relatively light. I'm just loading the brush. It takes time to get it where it's going to give me a good pattern. I'm kind of following these carved feather groups, just to line feathers up there. And I'm angling those those up. Need to reload. And then I want to start bending these around towards the breast. So that's the technique I'm going to use for these light feather tips. And I'll come back after I get that done. I'm going to do similar thing that I did on the Drake. As I get up to the breast, I'm going to use a fan blender and flick a few feather tips up there as well. I think I'm going to keep going with this technique and do the breast feathers as well. Just start to wrap them around. And pull them right into that light area. So I'll do that all the way around, using carbon black to block in these two wing bars. They're kind of set back towards the rear, and they're pretty close set together. I'm using white gesso. It's a little brighter than this off-white, just to pull a few feather lines through this area. Like that. And then I'm just going to pull just a few lines through this area just to break it up a bit and indicate some feathers in there. That's all we need. Now, like we did on the Drake, I'm just going around the perimeter here and breaking up this hard line between the neck and the head. The tail coverts seemed a little light to me, so I just took a damp scrubber with a little carbon black on it and darkened the coverts a bit, and now they kind of blend in better. I've mixed a little kind of orangish, reddish brown, a lighter value of brown that I want to use to highlight the sides of the head of the bird, and I used brown earth, gold oxide, and burnt umber to come up with this mix. I've got the Decoy masked off. Now I added a little raw sienna to that mix to lighten it a bit. And I want to spray on just a little bit of a highlight here. For the hen's bill, I'm using carbon black with raw umber mixed together, and then just a touch of white gesso. The bill is really dark, but it's not jet black either. So kind of a brownish gray black, if there's such a thing. And then we'll do the light tip next. For the tip of the bill, I've got a little white gesso with yellow oxide, raw sienna, a little bit of raw umber to tone it down a bit, and just a touch of Norwegian orange. A touch of gold oxide to give it just a little bit of an orange tint. And I'm just using a filbert to brush that on. A couple of coats. And just trying to leave a little bit of roughness along the margin there. To do a little bit of a blend. It's a pretty harsh transition into that dark gray value. It's a better look at that. I'm going to add the nail with a little carbon black and raw umber. I'm just going to wrap that underneath a bit. Now I've mixed a little burnt umber in with this base light color. I'm just going to pull a line through there. Going to transition that to black here in the dark gray portion and fade that out right there. And then I'm going to use carbon black, just load in that lower mantle, upper mandible, lower marking. I used my pattern to locate the nostril enclosures, and I've got a little of the side pocket gray color like we did on the Drake, to outline those. And then I'll use carbon black to really darken the nostril hole. And then similar to what we did on the Drake, I've got the gray material. Just going to put a highlight above and below that line. Got a little too much water in the brush. That's better. And then just put a few of those wrinkle highlights that we did on the Drake. I'll work with those a little bit to soften them up. Just used a little brush, some carbon black, and put some break marks in that transition just to soften it a bit. A final touch, I went around with a little carbon black and just pulled some quick feather quills to kind of add to the effect. Shaping up. Okay, that's a wrap on the Hen Common Goldeneye project. I had fun putting this together. I hope it's been helpful to you. I'll include some high-resolution photos of the finished bird from different angles for your reference at the end of the video here. By the way, I do seal my birds with dull coat, a couple of coats of dull coat to seal everything in, and then on top of that I use Krylon matte finish to put just a little bit of sheen back on the decoy so it's not so dead flat. And for the bill I use Prolux semi-gloss, and then I normally have to hit that again with the Krylon matte finish to dull that down just a bit to get the right consistency, not too shiny, not too flat. All right. Hope it's been helpful. Talk to you next time. Thanks for checking it out. Tom Christie signing out. Good carving to you.